Hello everyone, it is Liam, the Deaf Do Metalhead, and today I'm doing a totally different video. This is my top 25 songs ever in hard rock and metal. This was all inspired by an older gentleman called Metal Mickey, who runs a quite cool YouTube channel. So go check him out. I'll leave a link above my head and probably down below as well, so you can go check it out. But he did a video about this a while ago now. I've kind of sat on this video for a little while to kind of make sure I'm happy with it. But yeah, he did a video and it was really good, so go check it out. But this is my take on it, and this is essentially like a look at I still listen to all these 25 songs on a regular basis. I've even made a Spotify playlist which I'll put below, which is those 25 songs. So I hope you enjoy it. So the first one is a band that inspired the whole kind of metal movement for me, and it was a big kick up the arse in my upbringing into music, because I'm a 70s pop, 80s pop, kind of 90s. I was brought up in the 90s, so it was 90s pop. And then I heard this, totally changed me. Band is Korn, and the song is Blind, which is the first song off their debut album. I saw this for the first time on MTV2. My mum and dad just got Sky, and I was lapping up all this new music, and obviously they had the pop music on there, but they also had the alternative stuff. And around the very early 2000s, the new metal movement was rife. Linkin Park, Papa Roach, Limp Bizkit, they were all massive, but Korn was the biggest one for me. And I remember seeing that music video where they were playing a show live for the song, crowds going mental, everyone's going fucking jumping up and down. And back then I didn't know anything about heavy metal. I'm still a big sports fan, but they were all wearing Adidas clothing, they were pogoing with 7-string guitars, but I didn't know they were 7-string guitars. And I thought that was totally normal, and I just lapped it all up. I thought they were amazing. The whole dreadlocks and the whole slap bass stuff that Fieldy does just blew my mind. And as a kid I just lapped it all up, and I became a mega fan of theirs. I bought all their albums back then, I think up until Untouchables. And you know, to this day I'm still a fan of Korn, but only the old stuff. I can't get into new stuff by them, and I certainly can't get into new metal as a whole. I remember it fondly as a kid, but if you could try and sit me down with, like, say, a Limp Bizkit album, I just couldn't do it. But yeah, number one, Korn. Number two is a band everyone in the metal movement will say that at one point in time inspired them, and this band they're the biggest band in the world for that, probably that reason. That is Metallica. But the song for me, and that is still is key for this band, is Harvester of Sorrow off their Justice for All album. That song had everything for me what a heavy metal song should be. It's riffy, aggressive, it's chunky. And when I first saw it, would have been, there's a music video of them playing in Moscow, and the crowd are getting beaten up and people are going mental, and James Hetfield's angry, he's got his mullet kind of hair, he's drunk. Jason Newsted is doing death kind of growls underneath the vocals. He's got his undercut, he's windmilling away. It's just heavy, really, really heavy. And that massively inspired me and really spurred me on, because the whole macho thing, I want to be like that, you know. I want to be angry, I want to be aggressive, I want to look like James Hetfield without the hair. And well, even though I did grow my hair like that at one point, but it's just insane how good that song is. And even now when they play it I still get goosebumps, but it hasn't got the same effect as when they were younger and it was more aggressive. And pretty much this whole album, back when they played it right way up, you know, that it was the pinnacle for me. I mean, I first heard them through the Black Album, but then I went back and this was the one that opened the doors for me, Metallica, especially that one. Harvester of Sorrow, awesome track. Number three is a band that sadly is no longer around, but the height of my thrash movement, my late teens, I was all about the thrash metal, and a few of these songs on this list are thrash songs, which will probably surprise a few people maybe. But that was the genre. It's so easy to get into. When you start getting into metal, you kind of find your first band, and you normally want to go faster. You wouldn't go slow like I do now, you go fast. And Slayer, Angel of Death off the Rain and Blood album was the pinnacle of speed metal. You know, it has the riffs, the vocals about Auschwitz in there, and you got the Dave Lombardo drumming, which is totally different to Metallica, so that really separated it for me, and kind of then put the link between death metal and thrash metal for me. And it's just such a good album, and the song in question, Angel of Death, was fantastic. I still now, when I saw them on their last tour, their last ever tour, I went absolutely ballistic when it came on. And I don't normally do that at shows. I kind of reserve myself back because I've been to so many. I don't go for it. But when they played that song, I just jumped out of my seat and went absolutely ballistic. And my wife said that I've never done that before, and it is really just a out of body moment listening to Slayer. It was amazing, absolutely amazing. So yeah, Angel of Death. I mean, everyone's heard that song, right? And then number 4 was another thrash metal band that to this day I will still listen to. There's not many thrash bands I listen to, but this one is iconic for me. It's just a massive inspiration. That is the band Overkill with their self-titled album Horrorscope and the song Horrorscope. Now when I first heard this was when I was kind of weaning off speed metal and I was getting into more slower kind of stuff. But these are the guys that kind of spurred it on, because that song Horrorscope is not a thrash song. It's heavy, it's slow, it's very riffy, and it's got a great solo in it, and when I even play it live to this day, it's just a fucking phenomenal song and kind of nicely separates the set list. But this was a band, again, the vocals were totally unique. It didn't sound like the other thrash bands to me, and then they're doing songs that are slower, and at that point I had only heard super fast stuff like Testament and Metallica and all that kind of thing, even a bit of Megadeth I think by memory. But these guys stood out, and they still do, and they don't put out a bad album, but they don't do the slow stuff like they used to, and I really miss that in their sound. But yeah, Horrorscope, that is an amazing song. I can grab a guitar off the wall now and I could jam that for you. It's such a great song. Now this one, I don't know why I still listen to this song. I love it to death, and it is one that's just stuck in my head for years and years and years. I think I discovered this band during my kind of thrash movement, and I was kind of binging on thrash bands, and I found this band, and I found this album, and this specific song off this album, and I just fell in love with it. The band is IVth, and this is their Horror Show album, which is a concept album about Halloween, I guess, and different horror stories. And the song Frankenstein, it's just got this really great kind of doomy riff. It's not a thrashy song. It's probably one of the slowest ones off the album. It's just very riffy. It's got this kind of great little lead bit over the top of it. Vocals are fantastic. The drums syncopated on the vocals. It's really cool, and I love it to this day. I still listen to it a lot. If it comes on, I never skip it. It's just, yeah, an amazing. I mean, this album is really good, but that one song. I mean, I know this band are like dogmuck to most people now, especially Americans. But I mean, I saw these guys live, and they were really good. But that song, I just wish I could see it live, because it's such a staple in my musical life. I listen to it a lot. So yeah, IVth, Frankenstein, really good song. Now, this will probably piss off a few people, but this is my favourite Black Sabbath song, and probably my favourite Black Sabbath album, but the song in question is what makes it for me. Now this is Black Sabbath's Dehumanizer, and the track is the last one off this one, track 10, Buried Alive. Now this is the Dio era of Black Sabbath, with what was his name, Vinny Appice on drums. Then you got Geezer and Tony Iommi, obviously. That song, Buried Alive, is the heaviest Sabbath song there is. I will argue the toss out of anyone to say it's not, because it's got the best riff. It's heavy as fuck. It's simple as fuck as well. It's got a ton of solos in there, and it just goes on. But it's not complicated. It's just heavy, to the point. There's no doomy kind of atmospheric stuff. It's just riff. And I love it. I jam this one a lot, and on my guitar when I'm tuning up or rehearsing and warming up, and I love it. I absolutely love it. To this day I love it. I mean, I know Jasta from Hatebreed covered it, and that was decent, but it still hasn't got the same balls as the original, and I could swear you could do a death metal cover of it. It still sound spot on. So if you haven't heard that track, well, obviously I'll leave a link below to every song I'm talking about, as well as the Spotify playlist. But yeah, amazing song. I love it to death. Right, let's show some different things. Now this is my favourite band ever, and it was a band that really changed my outlook on just music in general. That when I first heard them, I had gone through a breakup, and I was going through my iPod because I used to look LimeWire everything back then. Didn't buy CDs anymore. I bought them as I was young, but then I stopped as I got into a job in IT. I discovered torrenting and how you could just fill an iPod up like an iPod Classic with shitloads of music, and I did that. I went to town, and a lot of these bands are discovered that way, and this was the one of them, just because I was in a really upset mood and I wanted the band name to reflect that, and that band is My Dying Bride. But the song in question that really sticks with me out of a whole discography, I mean, this wouldn't be the one I discovered that got me into them. This was the one I heard and is my go-to My Dying Bride song all the time. Like, some of them are really hard to listen to unless you're in the mood. Some of them I've heard so much I can't listen to them unless I leave it for like a year or two. But this one I can have on any time, and I love it. And I only have it in this like kind of special edition book. I don't know why I don't have the EP, but it is The Thrash of Naked Limbs. That track is epic, it's riffy, it's got like a really slow doomy bit with a dual guitar harmony, then it stops and goes into a real death metal bit, and there's some double kick and some single foot blasting in there, and then and then it slows right down again, and it just remains epic. Aaron's vocals are really nasty, and if you've seen them do it live, it's just amazing. And yeah, that is the best My Dying Bride song for me, just because it has everything about them in one song. It's more of the early work, so it's kind of got more of a death doom side to it, more than the gothic-y kind of doom stuff they do now. But yeah, if you've not heard that track, I mean, it's amazing. I just don't have the EP for some reason. I don't know, I think it's because I got it on this book. I never thought to buy it, but yeah, My Dying Bride, everyone knows I like My Dying Bride. Now, let's show you some vinyl. So this one here is a funny one, because again, I discovered this by accident. I actually thought this was a Judas Priest song for years and years and years, because I torrented it and it had Rob Halford's vocals, but it's not Judas Priest. It is Fight, with the album A Small Deadly Space, and the song in question is Human Crate. Now, that song is very, very doomy. It's almost like Rob Halford's version of Black Sabbath, that song, to me. And I know he did join them to do a live show or two, but if you could picture Rob Halford doing Sabbath, Human Crate is that song. It's slow, it's doomy, it's got that night, because they were kind of trying to sound like Pantera, it's got that late 90s kind of metal sound to it, with the guitar tones and the drumming, especially the drumming. But it's an amazing song. I can hear it now in my head, I can jam it on guitar. Very simple riff, it's got a wicked solo on it. I believe Satchel from Steel Panther was in this band, but I don't think he wrote that song in question. But it is just a classic song for me. I mean, I listened to it loads and loads and loads. No, he's not on here, is he? No, I don't know who they are. But yeah, Rob Halford, I was convinced this was Judas Priest for years and years and years. No, it's Fight when he joined them. So yeah, if you've not heard that song, Human Crate, obviously go check it out. It's wicked. Now this one is a big, big, big step up in my musical journey. I first heard this song, and it's just, again, it's got me down the doom route completely. Sabbath was kind of taking me there, but this band kind of pushed me there completely, and that is the band Candlemass, with the song off this album, Tale of Creation. Now, I think it's the last song on this album, yeah. This, to me, is Candlemass. This is the first time I ever heard them was through this album and that song. And I loved it. You know, I used to get the bus to work back then, to about an hour from my parents' house, and I used to just sink in on my iPod all this music. And this one, especially back then when it was cold and wet, I'd just sit on the bus and just zone out listening to this song. And I loved it, and I still love it to this day. It's so simple, it's heavy, the guitar solo on it is wicked. You've got like an end riff. There's about 7 or 8 riffs in this one song alone, and they're all fantastic. I absolutely love Candlemass, especially that song Tales of Creation. That to me, as well as maybe Well as Souls, is their best 2 songs ever. I mean, not a lot of people like this album because it's not as good as the previous 2, say, but for me, that one song sells it. You know, I absolutely love it. And then from them, I discovered this band, and I probably love this band even more, and that is Solitude, Aeturnus. and the song Black Castle off the album Beyond the Crimson Horizon. This was their second album, and Black Castle is a song that is again really stompy, very riffy. It's faster than what you'd expect from a doom band, because they were at that point, the first two albums, kind of transitioning from a thrash band to a doom band. So you kind of had that. There's moments on this album, especially when it goes really fast. And on Black Castle, you have that. It's doomy. You can windmill to it, and it's just such a good song. The solos are wicked. Rob Low's vocals are really high and really epic, and it's just, I fucking love it. I absolutely love that song. And I've listened to that now since, well, I've listened to a lot of these since I was about 18, you know. And that one again, like even my wife loves it now because I've listened to it so much in the car. Put it on kids' playlist. You know, I love that track. So if you've never heard Black Castle, you might not get hard on as much as I do when I hear it, but I just absolutely love that song. It's an amazing song. Can't recommend that one enough. And then we move on to this band that I think I got into purely because I loved My Dying Bride so much. And then when you listen to My Dying Bride, you have to listen to Paradise Lost. Now, Draconian Times would have been possibly the first album I heard from them, or maybe Shades of God, I can't really remember. But for me, Paradise Lost is only one song that I always go to, and that is Forever Failure, which is on the B-side. And it's an amazing song, and it's got this really weird start to it that you're not sure what's going to happen, and it just stops and goes into this wicked Gregor lead with a really doomy kind of power chords over it, and then the vocals are all clean son. You know, I didn't know they did death growls until later on when I got into my death metal. I discovered that these guys had some albums that weren't cleanly sung. So yeah, Paradise Lost, I always remember this album the most, and Forever Fail is a song that if I ever hear it, I absolutely love it. There's other songs that are great, but that one, especially off this album, is amazing for me. Love me that song. This album is another one that I just adore, and especially this song is the whole reason I like this band, and that is Asphyx with the song Last One on Earth, which is the self-titled song of this album. Love it. It's again another doomy kind of death metal song, but more doomy to me at that point. It's riffy, it's got some fast bits in there, and then this album is more of a death metal album, but it has that doomy stuff, and I didn't know what Death Doom was back then. You know, it's not till a lot later on when I actually joined Consecration that I would even know what Death Doom was. I listened to the style of music but without really knowing what it was, and these are one of the bands, you know. It's just Asphyx as a whole, their whole discographies are wicked for me, but this is the one that I'll always recommend to anyone, especially that song. It's just the riffs, how heavy it is when they play it live, people go ballistic. It's one of the most iconic songs, and the album artwork as well for that song is amazing. So Asphyx, Last One on Earth. Going back to some thrash, this was a band I discovered through my LimeWire days, and I don't know why, it just stuck with me. These guys just had everything that I wanted. It was riffy, fast. They also had some really good singing on it, and back then I used to love a good chorus in my music, and I still do. And this one has never changed my mind. I love this band, and that is Artillery. The album is By Inheritance, and the song is Don't Believe. I think I found it on a comp off LimeWire, and it has this kind of like acousticy kind of bit at the start, but it's really fast, and then it's got this like cheesy kind of vocal style, which is very, very European. It's not obviously, you wouldn't, well, back then I wouldn't have said it. It sounded funny to me back then. It's just Herman, and it's really weird. It's obviously a Danish trying to do an English accent, and he's singing it in a kind of a traditional new wave of British heavy metal style, and then the vocals go really high pitched, and it's all really fast, and there's solos going off with loads of dive bombs on it and all sorts of things like that, and it's just, I love it. I mean, I love this whole album, but that one song By Don't Believe is just, I can sing it, I can memorize every riff in my head, and that's the key to saying that you love a song. If you can remember every single passage of the song, you know, it's stuck with you for, you know, for life. And I can remember it years and years and years ago listening to it, and I still remember listening to it. even today, like, I mean, it would have been what, 15, 16, 17, 18 years ago. I still remember it like it was yesterday. So yeah, Don't Believe by Artillery is a banger. Now, this one is an obvious one for most death metal fans. It's an iconic song, you could say. It's a crowd pleaser. Bloodbath's album Nightmares Made Flesh and the song Eaten. Now, I first heard it on YouTube probably 2000, I don't even know when this came out, probably maybe a couple of years. They did a live in Wacken festival, and there's Michael Achenfeld doing the vocals at that point, and they did the song Eaten, and it was, it's a classic song, it's such a basic chorus, the vocals, you remember every word of it, simple little riff over the top of it, some wicked solos in there, and it's just amazing. And the vocals obviously speak about that German bloke that wanted to get eaten by someone. And yeah, I mean, I can sing it off the top of my head, I know the words to it, everything, and that's really hard in death metal. There's not a lot of songs in death metal that I can sing off the top of my head the vocals of. Riff wise, I'm really good at remembering riffs because I play guitar, but vocals wise, I do struggle with this album, especially that song Eaten, word for word, not off by heart. So yeah, Bloodbath, classic. Now, this to me is the best death metal song ever, and it will always be that for me, and it's an iconic song for me. And I know loads of people don't like this album, especially the way they changed their sound, but for me this was the gateway into death metal that made it acceptable, and that is the band Morbid Angel with the album Domination. But the song Where the Slime Lives is, to me, the best death metal song ever. It's stompy, doomy, wicked riff, an absolute wicked riff. It's got technicality in the solo where Trey's doing some ridiculous kind of sweep tapping movements with a load of chorus effects on it and delay, so you can't really figure out what he's doing, but you kind of know as you get older you figure out a little bit. And it's just an amazing song. You got like the double kick underneath a really slow riff, and that was something I never heard before, because when I first heard this song I had heard Hammer Smash Face by Cannibal Corpse, and I didn't like it. I thought it was silly. I liked it a little bit, but I thought it was a bit too much back then. But when I saw the video for this, and it's all kind of black and white and the head banging away, and I think he's wearing like an ECW shirt, and at the time I was a massive wrestling fan, it all just clicked, and I had to go and get this. So I have the CD of this. I bought it there and then. I can't even remember. I think I went to HMV in Norwich. I got on the bus, went to the city, which is about 45 to an hour on the bus, got the CD, and yeah, had it ever since, and I've got it on vinyl now. But yeah, Where the Slime Lives, a classic song. I can always put that one on and get a hard on, it's a classic song, amazing. Now, this is another one from my LimeWire days when I used to have my iPod Classic. Now, I don't know if you had the same problem I did, but when I used to download songs, you weren't sure what you're going to get. It was either going to be really over the top, or it would be wrong, or it wouldn't be right. And when I first heard this one, the volume, someone had edited the MP3, and the sound was massive, like really, really loud, really in your face. And that is King Diamond's Them with the song Bye Bye Missy. I mean, the riff, it goes straight in with a massive riff, and then he goes up really high-pitched vocals. And back then I was blown away by how mad it sounded, because no one sounds like King Diamond. There's loads of imitators, but there is only one king. And I was just amazed. Like, musically it was so heavy, and everyone that I showed it to hated it. Absolutely hated it. To this day, there's so many people that don't like King Diamond when I say, listen to this. And, obviously on the online community, you've got lots of friends out there who like your music. But in the real world, when I try and recommend songs, these guys never go down well at all. And I love King Diamond, especially Bye Bye Missy. That song was the starting point for King Diamond. It was the first time I ever heard them. And it's amazing. It's such a good album. Well, the song, the album, the whole fucking lot is just perfect for me. Like, it's just the riffs, the harmonies, the weird, we've got the background vocals where he's kind of doing a spoken word voice for the demon, and then Missy, and then some other characters, and you kind of learn that's why he's doing it, because it's a story. It's just amazing. So yeah, King Diamond, amazing. I love that song, Bye Bye Missy. Now here's another one that not anyone speaks about, but to me this band just clicked, and this specific album and this song just clicked. It was the first one I ever heard by them, and the reason I got really into them is because I could understand what he was saying, because death metal back then when I first heard it, it was, the riffs were great but the vocals were so intense I couldn't digest it. But when I heard Gorefest, this is the album Rise to Ruin, and the song what was it, where has it gone, Speak When Spoken To. I had a brain lapse then. I wanted to say that but I didn't. So that song off this album is just, it's intense, it's fast, so that ticked a box for me because I can get into fast music. I can understand what he's saying, you know, he does like a Cookie Monster kind of vocal style, and it took a little bit to get you know into, but the more I listened to it, the more I was like, this is really, really fucking good. And it's, you know, an amazing song. It's just, and it's just heavy. Then it has a breakdown bit where they kind of like do some kind of dual harmony stuff on the guitars, and then the solos are more of a classical rock kind of style. They're not like heavy metal, death metal style where it's just nonsense like I would do. It's more tasteful licks, you know, and it's just an amazing band. So underrated, especially in their latter albums where they kind of changed it up and become more of a polished hard rock death metal band. You know, really, really good song. So yeah, Speak When Spoken To. I'll link it below and you'll tell me how amazing it is, or how shit it is, I don't know. Now this next one is another one that is an absolute classic in the heavy metal world, and everyone likes this song, right? Savatage and the self-titled song Hall of the Mountain King, off the album Hall of the Mountain King. Now this song it has everything. Soaring heavy vocals, riffs for days, mad solos, you know, and it's just loud, in your face, intense, and I love it. I absolutely love it. Never get bored of hearing this song. You know, Hall of the Mountain King, you know, I can still sing it now in my head, and I start humming it, you know, I go off into a different world, you know. Absolutely classic band. So yeah, everyone knows Savatage. That's amazing. Now this one, a majority of you might not know. The band is called Doomshine from Germany. I have shown this on my channel a few times. The album is Piper at the Gates of Doom, but the song in question is the whole reason I love this band, is the song Hark, the Absurd Angels Fall. Now I heard that, I was in my heavy kind of Candlemass phase where I was lapping up all the epic doom I could find, and that song had everything. It had the epic vocals where I could understand every word, and it told a story but it didn't really make sense. And then you got these big heavy riffs, some amazing solos. Now this band, the lead guitarist is very underrated. He's a wicked guitar soloist, and the solos are really tasteful and they fit the song. They're not shreddy or just nonsense. It's all Pacific. And that song Hark, the Absurd Angels Fall, is just heavy, melodic, epic, you know, everything you want from like a kind of traditional doomy kind of point. So go give that a go. I love that song to death. Amazing song. Back to some vinyl. We're nearly there. Bolt Thrower and the song The Fourth Crusade. Now this was my first introduction to Bolt Thrower. That song again is doomy, very simple riff, you know, and it's got that double kick underneath, and because I love Where the Slime Lives so much, it has that similar blueprint where it's got a riff that isn't fast, and it's got two guitars doing two slightly different things, and you've got a double kick underneath it to keep the beat, and it's just amazing. Absolutely amazing album, well worth your time. Everyone knows this one. Again, it's an absolute classic band, massive band for me. I was lucky to see these guys live twice as well, and I have seen them play Fourth Crusade. So yeah, wicked song. Now this one is more of a sentimental one, but at the time before it happened, I liked it. but it's become permanently engraved in my head because of the situation. The band is Deftones with the album Diamond Eyes, and the song Diamond Eyes was the whole reason it became such an important thing. Now, I actually had this song as my first dance at my wedding for me and my wife. We joked when we first met, because she liked Deftones as well, and I said to her, oh, what Deftones song do you like the most? And we both agreed that this song was the one we both would sing along to in the car. And I jokingly said to her, like, if we ever get married, we'll have that one as our first dance. And we laughed it off, and then a couple of years later we got married, and we fucking done it. You know, we had it on, all the people around us were watching us about to do our first dance, expecting something, so we had all sorts of music going on to kind of throw people off. And then when that big fucking heavy riff comes in, everyone was like, what the fuck's going on? And we're dancing, laughing our heads off to a song that isn't meant to be danced to at all. You know, my 5-year-old boy was with us. It was a real fun memory, and that is imprinted on me for the rest of my life, you know. And this album, it's a very good album, but that song is the only reason I love this album. And it's probably the best one off this album for me as well. So yeah, more of a sentimental one, but it is in my top 25 because of that. Right, what have we got? 4 more, and then I can leave you be. So this one is a belter, and this song is amazing. Now, Cryptopsy's None So Vile with the song Graves of the Fathers. Fucking awesome song. Now, this band's really, really intense. And when I first heard it, it was like all over the place. It's just like a fucking wall of noise at first. But that song kind of made me take it a step back and really appreciate this band, because it's just riff city. It's such a good song. Vocals mean nothing. You might as well not even have them because you don't know what's saying, but you still do the impressions. I still do anyway. Drumming is intense. The bass lines on it, everything is intense. And as a guitar player, I've never figured out how to do half the riffs this band can do, especially on this album. But that song, you know, din, 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 tss, and it goes right into it. It's just absolutely amazing. Love it to death. Still do. There's, you know, certain death metal songs you get tired of. I've never got tired of that song. So yeah, Graves of the Fathers, classic. Right, 2 more. This is probably the newest one off the list, and again, a band that had a massive impact on me in recent years, but this one song is the whole reason behind it. This is the whole reason I even like this band. Temple of Void. This is their album Lords of Death, and the second song off this album, Wretched, Banquet. Everything I want in Death Doom. It's got a massive, massive riff, wicked guitar tone, really scooped guttural vocals, and it really did remind me of Morbid Angels Where the Slime Live, and I think that's where the link came in for me to adore this band. They've got such a... I think they are inspired by Morbid Angel and the early stuff, but that song is just such a good riff. You know, it's just dun, 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 you know, and it just goes on and on and on, and it gets a bit trippy in the middle, but they always go back to that riff, and that was a whole selling point for me. And you know, anything with a cover like that, I'm going to get involved in. But when I heard that song, massive fan ever since, and one that just come out in 2017, so it's a fairly newish song, but you know, over the years, every year I'll still listen to this, jam it all the time, especially that track. So yeah, wicked, wicked song. Now, this is the only black metal song out of this whole list, but I heard this a while ago, and back then I would say this was the only black metal band I could stomach, and the only song I could stomach. And then obviously this completely changed now, and I listen to black metal probably more than anything else at the moment, especially now it's colder here in the UK. But the band Dissection with the song The Somberlain. Now, I think the reason I liked it the most is because the riffs, it's just the melodies with the dual guitars, they're both doing something different, and you can hum it for days. It just sticks in your head, and it's just so tasteful with the guitar work, and you know, an iconic band for probably the first 2 albums anyway. But that song, The Somberlain, it's just amazing. Like the vocals, everything, I remember it. And back then, I had people introduce me to black metal, and I just didn't get it. Like the barking vocals, the high pitchedness of it, I do now, but back then I really, really struggled. But for some reason, for Dissection, that was never an issue. And when I heard The Somberlain, it's just like, wow, that's amazing. And then when you hear this album and the one after it, it's just like, that's amazing. Why does not all black metal sound like that? And then you discover there's different styles of black metal, and you kind of go down a wormhole like you do with death metal. But yeah, for me, that is probably the best black metal song ever, which probably would piss off all the true cult nerds out there, but you know, I don't care. And finally, to end this video, this is probably the longest video I've done in a long time, so I do apologise, but I wanted to do this list because it's cool. This band I've had the pleasure of playing live with, which I always brag about, and this is a massive album for me, especially this song. You know, this whole band sound I absolutely adore. Daylight Dies with Dismantling, Devotion, and the song is Solitary Refinement. It's very slow, very melodic, especially with the guitars. It's just that riff it starts with is mentally catchy. It's just the way it sings to you, it's depressing. And then they go in with the clean vocals, and it's just gorgeous. Absolutely love the song. And there is another song, the self-titled song off his album, which is really massive for me as well. But that one, Solitary Refinement, edges it just a bit more because of the riff. With the clean singing, it just has this rich tone to it, and it sounds absolutely huge. And you know, it's one I never ever get tired of. I will jam this album out every year, especially now when it's getting dark and colder. You have a mood for certain albums and certain songs, and that one just ticks the box every single time. So yeah, Daylight Dies, Solitary Refinement. Now, I do appreciate anyone who's watched the end, and let me know your top 25 songs in the comment section below. Obviously, please like this video if you got to the end to let YouTube know I'm alright. And if you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing and checking out content here, and here. Until then, I will speak to you guys soon. Cheers!